Morning, everyone. I hope you're bright and sunny this morning, despite the bleaky weather I observed earlier. Is the sun out now? I'm not sure. I'm tightly locked up inside the JBDC's conference room at our head office at 14 Camp Road. So I can't see what's going on out there. But I do hope that you are having yourselves a wonderful morning and you are ready for an inspiring session. This morning, for the first time, we're bringing you the JBDC Virtual Gift and Craft Biz Zone. Now, if you've been with us for the last few months, you would have known that we've been doing the Biz Zone since April 7, 2020, shortly after Jamaica recorded its first COVID-19 case, and many of us were sent scampering for cover. We realized that it was going to be important for us to keep our entrepreneurs engaged throughout. Thanks, Glendon. The sun is out where you are. Wonderful. Nice. All right. So we knew that we would have to keep our entrepreneurs engaged, many of whom would have gone into panic mode instantly when the pandemic hit globally, and worse yet, Jamaica. And so we embarked on a series of virtual trainings, which included the JBDC Virtual Biz Zone, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, with the 10 o'clock session focusing on the operational side of the business, like finance, marketing, customer experience, and so on, and the 1 o'clock focusing on the production side. We also brought you JBDC in concert every Thursday up to the end of July. That one was specifically for our creatives, and we looked at different industries under the creative and cultural industries, as well as we looked at issues pertaining to all of them, like the big one, intellectual property, marketing, going digital, and all of that. We also brought you the Entrepreneur's Journey on a Friday, which included an interview with inspiring entrepreneurs with a story to tell, entrepreneurs that are within reach, nobody that you would think is way above your level, that you'd never get there. And so good stories that would encourage you. And as JBDC is prone to being a dynamic organization, we have now once again brought you another innovative product on the heels of the launch of the National Craft Policy, which took place in July. We took a break in August and we returned last week, Tuesday, with the Virtual Biz Zone. And today, for the first time, we're bringing you the JBDC Virtual Gift and Craft Biz Zone under the topic, the National Craft Policy, preparing for implementation. And let me introduce you to our presenter this morning, who should be no stranger to you if you are in the industry. She is Mrs. Janine Fletcher Taylor, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and the organization that she works for just before she starts. Her educational background includes a diploma in hospitality and tourism management from the Institute of Management and Production, a diploma in business administration from the University of Technology, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Finance and Accounting from the same university, UTech, a postgraduate diploma in development management and poverty alleviation from the University of London. And she is also a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Her professional background started out at a very young age in administration at the Grace Kennedy Export Trading Division. She moved on to an interesting place. Listen to this, it did name enough things. So things were in the making for her a long time, and she was working in sales. Janine thought she could have been a salesperson for a company distributing major music labels, records, and books about the music industry. Turned out she didn't really like sales, but guess what? It exposed her to the importance of Jamaican culture. In 2001, when the Jamaica Business Development Corporation acquired Things Jamaican, she joined the organization as a marketing assistant. Today, she has ascended to the the role of manager of that unit, which is the marketing services unit here at JBDC, which controls the Things Jamaican retail chain, among other interventions under market access for entrepreneurs in this gift and craft industry. With over 20 years experience in the gift and craft industry, she has a strong passion for the development of local artisans for whom her team aims to secure market access primarily through the Things Jamaican brand and its subsidiaries. Now, a little bit about Things Jamaican. It is synonymous over the years with quality Jamaican made art and craft products, and it was established in 1960s by the then government under the late former Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Edward Philip George Siaga. JBDC's marketing support services encompass activities which are divided into two major subcategories. One, developmental, and two, operational, which includes the Things Jamaican retail chain, which we affectionately call TJ. These activities include value chain development, coaching, consultation, trade and events, promotion, product review, analysis and testing, marketing training, project implementation, as well as market access, which includes retailing opportunities that aim to promote and build brand Jamaica. JBDC has remained committed to the development of the promotion of authentic Jamaican products, including handicrafts, eclectic gift lines, specialty foods, and spa products. Through its unifying Things Jamaican umbrella brand, showcasing and retailing the best and highest quality products which Jamaica has to offer, JBDC is one of the largest purchasers, distributors, and promoters of authentic Jamaican products, currently marketing brands for over 400 active suppliers island-wide. The Things Jamaican website was launched earlier this year in around February, March, around about March at our annual breakfast with the CEO event, as well as its stores are located at the Norman Manley International Airport, the historic Devon House, and JBDC's corporate offices right here at 14 Camp Road. This morning, the lady who heads the division, which controls Things Jamaican and markets the products of artisans, is going to tell you about the recently launched National Crafts Policy, preparing for implementation. But before she begins, I would like you to do one thing for us. There is a poll that Sansia is going to share just about now. And we want to learn more about the people who are in this room this morning. So if you could just fill that out quickly for us, and then Mrs. Fletcher Taylor will take you through the National Craft Policy, preparing for implementation. If you're looking at your screen, you'll see it right there. It's nothing lengthy. It's very quick. Just tell us if you're male, female, how old you are, and which sector in the gift and craft industry you currently operate. I'm seeing the responses going up, and so we can begin. Over to you, Janine. Uno can clap her, no, clap her, which part uno there?
Thank you, Suzette, for that fantabulous introduction. Just gonna share my screen. So welcome everyone. Why are we here today? So as Suzette earlier indicated, we recently launched the craft policy. And given the nature of the policy, it's going to be very critical for every stakeholder to be involved and to give their inputs and to be participating in the ongoing process of developing this industry. And over the next few weeks, we will be doing some of that implementation in terms of capacity building and training, and really just sensitizing the participants to some of the critical issues that they need to focus on as participants in the industry, and to help persons to understand how they can prepare to benefit from the policy and how they can prepare to contribute and how they can prepare for their businesses to grow as a result of the development and implementation of the policy. So I will be giving a recap today of the policy, basically just meaning the main areas that the policy will be seeking to address, and making some recommendations as to how persons can start, because we actually have started the implementation, but how you as a producer or somebody in the value chain, in terms of whatever it is you're doing to contribute to the industry, how you can prepare yourself to benefit from the policy. So the first thing we want to talk about is why is the gift and craft industry important? Does it have a value? What can we gain as a country to focus on this industry? Well, globally, it has been established that it has a value. And these are the three main value propositions that have been identified as it relates to the gift and craft industry. First thing is that it generates income for individuals, households, and communities. And what we will know about the players in the industry is that resources, natural resources, they are outside. Leaves, trees, wood, stones, anything at all that you can think about can become an input to the production of a gift and craft product. And that means that the accessibility to the average individual, just like with music, you have a gift, you can sing, you can write a song, you get somebody to put a tune to it, you may become the next Hollywood star. And that is one of the key features of this industry, is that it gives open access to anyone who has a gift, has a talent, or has an interest in learning something new to do with their hands, to convert that into earning potential. And that is the first value proposition. And so therefore it's open to anybody who really has taken a step to look at the materials and the resources around them and to use those resources to convert it into a product that the market will buy. And that is key. And so we are saying that the gift and craft industry helps to generate income and is a key component in poverty alleviation globally because of its ability to give access to all. The other value proposition is that as a country, we boast boldly about brand Jamaica and our culture and our vibes. And Jamaicans are very, very proud of their cultural heritage and their history. However, it's a little bit more than just being proud of it, because it's actually something that you can monetize. It is perhaps what we would call our differentiation strategy globally. There's only one Jamaica, only one unique culture, unique values, and a unique identity. Now, what is this identity? How can we leverage on that particular uniqueness and infuse that in the products that we are making, so that when they go out in the market, it is easily identified as, yes, this is a Jamaican product, this has Jamaican relevance to Jamaican culture, and it is easily identified with as part of being brand Jamaica. And so that in and of itself already sets us apart in the marketplace as something that we can use to differentiate when we put our products in the market. The other thing is that it is very integrated and very inclusive. And so the value chain is very vast. It includes farmers, it includes producers, it includes vendors, it includes retailers, you name it. And then it comes into the household, and then there's the family legacy that gift and craft item is passed on to generations. And so it is part of retaining our heritage and retaining our culture while earning from it, because ultimately for JBDC, earning is the ultimate aim. And the reason we want to really have these webinars is to make sure that everyone is cognizant of how we can position the sector, what we can do to extract from it, and what we can do to protect it, to ensure that the generations to come can benefit from it. So what does the policy entail? The first thing is that the policy is supported by the government of Jamaica. So that means that it's going to have quite a number of ministries and agencies and government bodies that will be involved. We're talking about intellectual property. So we have JIPO. We're talking about markets such as the tourism industry. So we're talking about the Ministry of Tourism. We're talking about retention of culture and heritage. So definitely the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sports has to be a critical partner in this implementation. We're talking about natural resources, and so therefore the environmentalists, NEPA, all forestries, everybody is involved to ensure that as a small little island, while we are extracting the resources, we are regenerating these resources and we are protecting it, and we are not just depleting it and using it and destroying our ecosystem. So the first thing that will be done in terms of that action is the establishment of a craft council. And that craft council will involve a number of these government agencies, but also key stakeholders such as yourselves. One of the things we'll talk about later is the importance of community groups and associations. Naturally, we can't just handpick a craft producer and say this craft producer is representative of the craft players. And so we will be looking to some of these associations and community-based groups to have representation on this craft council. And it is with a view to look at the policy that was written. It has an implementation plan, very detailed, and it would have taken into consideration quite a number of the challenges that we have identified over the last 20 years as JBDC. And it would have involved stakeholders island-wide that we would have asked about some of the challenges and issues being faced. And now it is time to look at how can we address these challenges one by one in such a way to build the industry. So that is the first thing that will be happening, the involvement of the government agencies that are relevant over the next maybe 3 to 5 years, and also the inclusion of representation from the value chain. And another part of the institutional support that will be given is one such as the one we're having today, which is capacity building. And that's primarily with involving training, but not just training, looking at our tools of trade, looking at how we can modernize our techniques and our production processes, looking at how we can learn how to use new raw material sources and non-traditional raw materials to create the same products maybe, or new products, looking at what do we need to know as entrepreneurs, because yes, we are members of the gift and craft industry, but we are ultimately business persons, entrepreneurs, and our aim is to earn, to leave a legacy, and to live. So what are some of the critical areas that we would need to provide to persons in terms of this capacity building? So that will be something that you will see a lot coming out from the participating agencies, a lot of training, a lot of on-the-ground support, and a lot of interaction with you as we seek to develop the industry. The area that we would have zoned in on where the policy is concerned is repositioning craft. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we would have stigmatized what we call craft, and we have a certain perception of what craft is. And is there some amount of tokenism in terms of how persons approach purchasing and interacting with gift and craft products? It is our view that gift and craft items are actually quite high-end because it is handmade, and it has a lot of intricacies involved and a lot of back-end stories that are important in determining how valuable the products that come out of this industry is. And so we have to, as a collective, look at how we are contributing to some of the representation of craft and look at how we can now change the perception of the participants in the industry as well as the customers that we're seeking to attract. So we're not talking about just a little craft item that we sat down and made. We are talking about viable products that can be given as gift items. We're talking about products that can be utilized in our homes, in our offices, in our daily lives. Every day we get up, we put on our clothes and we put on our jewelry, and we are walking out there and we are not recognizing that some of these pieces are actually coming out of the gift and craft industry. So when we talk about repositioning, we're talking about giving the industry the respect it deserves, not just by saying we deserve respect, but also to, as participants and producers in the industry, to value the contribution that we're making and look at standards and quality, and to look at the image of the sector. When we go into the craft markets, what do we want to communicate about craft when persons come in to shop? What do we want to communicate as a craft producer, that you're an entrepreneur and that you have sat with your gifts and your hands and you have made these products? And so a lot of this is dependent on the players. So the repositioning of the craft industry is really in your hands primarily, with the support, of course, with some marketing and rebranding and repackaging to ensure that the right communication is there to support what it is you're doing. As it relates to the craft spaces, we would be looking to transform what we call the craft market. And yes, it's a market, but we want it to be a little bit more than a market. We want to convert the craft market concept into what we call experience villages. Now, the gift and craft industry, especially in Jamaica, is a dominant player in the cultural and creative industry, what we call the orange economy. And that means that there are influences coming out of other aspects of the cultural and creative industries that influence the products and gifts that we make in this industry. And so we want to make sure that when you come into an experience village, we're integrating these other elements so that persons can understand, okay, when they say a turtle in the craft market, how does that tie into the way of life in Jamaica? What is the relevance of the turtle? What's the relevance of the crab? What's the relevance of the rooster? And tell those stories, whether it is through the performing arts and other related cultural and creative products. So incorporating those products in the craft spaces so that persons will be interested to come and hear the story that we're telling about Brand Jamaica. So those are three critical things that we should be looking forward to contributing to. And a lot will be dependent on the participation of persons to ensure that, and the cooperation of persons to ensure that we get that vision that we just spoke about into our reality. No, it is our expectation that with the transformation of these craft spaces, that we would now be generating far more livelihoods in those spaces. We would expect, for example, the hair braiding and the dancing and the spoken word and everything to be some channel of earning potential, not just for the entertainment value, but just to ensure that we are making money from these changes, right? Another area which is very, very important when we talk about sustainability, and we don't want to just be rich today, we want to be rich for a long time, and we want other generations that are coming behind us to also be able to leverage on what we would have built. And so that requires us to do a lot of protecting and preserving. What are we protecting? Well, the first thing is there are some influences and techniques in craft development that are unique to Jamaica's cultural heritage. And a lot of our masters would have passed and gone. And those techniques and those stories and the things that makes the baseline or the root and relevance of our culture has to be revitalized, and we have to now research and find out what is the relevance of our history in relation to what we are calling the gift and craft industry. But we know that it's there, but now we need to archive it. We need to document them. We need to learn them. We need to learn some of the techniques that have gone extinct and look at how we can bring those techniques into the current contemporary space and convert those into products, because it is this story that is going to be able to differentiate the Jamaican gift and craft item in the global market space from all the others. And a nation that has been very good at capturing their cultural retention is Africa. And if you look at the sub-Saharan African approach to gift and craft, it is very similar to ours. And so there definitely is some crossing over from our ancestors. We need to be able to understand what that is and what the relevance is and how we can monetize it, because of course it all comes back to money, and it comes back to earning. It is a economic impact as well as social impact, because the social aspect of it speaks to our identity. And so when we produce products, there's a certain level of importance that is given to the cultural identity that is infused in these products. The other thing that we need to work very diligently on, which is another weak area that was identified in the development process, is what we call intellectual property. We want to be able to look at things like branding, trademarks, and we would have complained in the stakeholder engagement about the importation of craft items that are knockoffs with Jamaica written on it and so on. It's still a free trade world, and so we really can't fight some of those battles to say just prevent everything from coming in so that we can only sell the things that we make here. That's not practical. So one of the ways that we can combat that is to look at intellectual property, establishing marks, establishing brands, and establishing a way to ensure that when persons are purchasing these products, there is something that differentiates the authentic Jamaican gift and craft products from those that are knockoffs or imported, or persons who are trying to leverage on our own culture. We have to ensure that we are the ones that are benefiting from that, the intellectual property and the value of that intellectual property. So we're going to have to look now at how persons are making craft. And so when you go into the craft markets and the retail stores that are selling these products, there are a number of products that are on the shelves that are not branded. They have no way of identifying who the maker is. We have no way of identifying how authentic it is in terms of was it made here, because there is the absence of branding and packaging. And that is something that, that's one of the things now when we talk about how do you prepare, that's one of the things that I would challenge everyone here today to start looking at. As gift and craft producers, it's time to start packaging and branding your products. It's time to start understanding what unique design did you put out and how can you protect it? How are you going to look at ensuring that if someone were to challenge your designs, would you be able to put up a challenge to them, right? The other thing that we would need to protect is our environment, and I'll speak a little bit more on that. And we will also have to know when we start looking at these brands, and when we talk about brands, we're talking about branding at the individual level, the individual producer level. We're talking about branding at the community level, because some of these communities have rich value in the brands that they can put out. And we're talking about some of the designations that we would have gotten from the UNESCO and some of the other elements in Jamaican culture that we can look to leverage on and use all of that to promote the entire sector, right? So that is something that you're going to be seeing And that requires a whole lot of participation and a whole lot of rethinking in terms of how we look at our products and packaging and branding. The, the other key area, so when we talk about developing an industry, it requires a lot of organization. It has to be systematic, it has to be organized, it has to be collaborative. Yes, we're gonna have to work together. We have to look at who is relevant and what is the role that they play. And that comprises the value chain. So we can't be there talking about making new products and looking at wood, for example, as a raw material source, and not be talking to the farmers and the owners of land that are sitting idle, not encouraging persons to plant trees so that we can continue to make products from wood, not talking to the retailers to find out, okay, I made a couple products and you have been selling products from me. How has the market been responding? What are consumers saying? What are they asking for? They're part of the value chain. They're the ones that spend the money. So we have to look at the entire picture from the product leaves your imagination to the time it gets into the consumer's hand to how it is you're going to keep making this product. And then we need to now look at all the different players along this value chain and what are some of the assistance that is needed to ensure that everybody's connecting the dots and working together. Another key area that will be looked at in the value chain is the area of product development. We have to find a way to understand the way consumers buy. Product development starts there. It's not just your creative idea and you want to bring it to life. And yes, all of that is good. But in the absence of not knowing what customers are spending on, we would have learned a little bit of that during COVID. When the environment shifts and things change, it can have a significant impact on the things that we would have been relying on for earning. And so we have to be very flexible, very dynamic, very agile in how we are developing products. We have to be very smart in terms of how we develop products. And we have to look at just loading all this creativity that we talk about in Jamaica. It needs to be evident in the products that we are putting out. So when we talk about developing the value chain, these are some of the things we need to become mature as a value chain if we are going to look at competing in the global space. Tourism alone won't sustain it. We have to look at which markets these gift and craft items are going into. So if we're going into home decor markets, it's a different perspective when persons are buying for home decor. It's a different perspective when persons are buying for furnishing. It's a different perspective when persons are buying for fashion and accessories. So what are these perspectives and how do we infuse those things in the products and the development process? We need to look at inputs and outputs. And by inputs, we're again talking about the raw materials. Where are they? Where are the raw materials? How much is there? How much do we need to produce? How much trees do we need to plant? How many core shells or cow horn shells can we get from the cow? All of these things we need to know when we talk about the value chain. If we're going to say, no, we're going to export craft, it's going to put a lot of demand on our inputs and in order to get the kind of outputs that we want. So those are some conversations that we're going to have to have. We're going to have to investigate. Persons are going to have to be willing to provide information. We need to know where the raw material sources are located and what we need to do to harvest them properly. Another key support, and this is a key thing that I would want the participants to pay attention to, the area of market access. So if you look at what you're earning now, well, maybe not now, maybe last year, because we are still hopeful that things will turn around and we will get back on track or get back on a new track. Look at the earning that you would have been making and try to imagine what you would want to be earning as a business owner from the production of gift and craft items. How can we look at enhancing the revenues? That means that we need to find new markets, new buying sources. We probably need to move away from just doing tourist related products and look at other markets. And how do we access those markets? So those are some of the things we're going to have to be investigating and trying to come up with strategies, because you have to be strategic. We have to come up with strategies to figure out how to get into these markets, how we can partner, try to understand some of the regulatory issues around exporting into some markets, especially because of the nature of the products that you're making and the fact that you're looking at products that attract a lot of attention when they're crossing borders. And it attracts a lot of attention as far as climate smart manufacturing is concerned, because persons are now, especially talk about the generations that are coming up, are far more conscious of how certain products impact the environment, and they're going to challenge you when you're accessing their markets. Find out where is your, how did you kill this animal to get the skin to make this bag. They're going to want to know these things when you're trying to get into new markets. These are really, really critical things that we have to pay attention to. We have to look at locally, regionally, because there's a regional market, and internationally, what are the markets that are feasible for us to enter, and understanding what are some of the dynamics involved in accessing them. And then we're going to have to create the opportunities now for persons to get into those market spaces. We're talking about trade events, we're talking about you leaving the workshop and going to some of these countries, walking around, looking at how their competitors are achieving access and getting into those markets. So it's sort of moving the meter a bit away from just what we understand to be craft and the craft market concept as the sole source of the market, and moving into commerce and export and partnerships across borders. And so we would expect one of the vision of the policy is that we will be exporting Jamaican made gift and craft to other countries, right? The strengthening of the ecosystem, that involves the ecosystem is what supports all of this to happen. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are developing businesses and developing producers, yes, developing products, but most importantly, developing businesses, because remember the earlier proposition is that the gift and craft industry can make a viable contribution to Jamaica's economy, as well as a viable contribution to earnings of the Jamaican citizens. So when we put those two together, we would expect that in order to do that, we would have to be developing robust businesses. And so paying key attention to business development, registration, formalization, bookkeeping, everything that is involved in a business, collaboration, and all the relevant components of what makes a strong business is in fact applicable to the gift and craft industry. And we want to make sure that as creatives, we know that this is something that creatives are very reserved on in terms of getting into bookkeeping and business development and all the boring stuff. But it is important. It is important for sustainability. It is important to ensure that you are earning what the real potential is. And it is just important to say, look, the gift and craft industry in 2021 contributed X% to the gross domestic product. That is something that you want to be able to say. And yes, the government will provide an enabling environment in the form of looking at incentives, especially for tools for trade. And there are some of that There is some of that already in existence, but it requires you being registered. It requires you being formalized. It requires you being informed. And in the series of workshops that will be coming up, we'll be bringing in some of these key partners to tell you about these incentives and how you can benefit from them and how you can move across borders, especially in the CSME region, how you move across borders to attend your gift shows and your craft shows, because that is a staple in the industry, the ability to move from island to island and do your island hopping and selling across the islands, because there are a number of similarities that makes that market feasible to enter. So developing an enabling environment is really looking at policy, of which this is one, and other incentive programs and incentives that we can offer to stimulate the production. And ultimately for us to be able to quantify the contribution that the industry is making to GDP. So what are some of the things that will be required? The artisan, first and foremost, has to recognize that they're entrepreneurs and in a business. And what does the artisan want to give to the world, and what do they want to gain from being in a part of the gift and craft industry? Diversifying craft products and moving into the functional areas of daily life that will increase revenue, because persons will be able to recognize a solution to a problem of daily living. So I want to eat, I need to eat around a table as a solution to a problem. Now, is that a product now that we need to look at, and not just the decorative and more token pieces, but now looking at products that are really, really in demand. Improving the product quality. We can't speak too much about the quality, because we have spoke about earlier the identity. What do we want to leave as the mark of the Jamaican gift and craft identity? And certainly having a quality product that, we have persons who can brag about having a Jamaican gift and craft product for 30 years and still be intact. And that is a serious value proposition to offer to our customer. And so it starts with the quality. We have to look at the way we are producing and see if maybe we are doing too much by hand. Maybe we need to now look at technology and see how we can improve the product quality through technology and improve the output as well through the use of mechanics and technology, and look at how we can create a type of system that ensures that the quality of the products are consistent. We need to improve the value chain, improve market access, access to infrastructure, and to access for infrastructure speaks a lot to rural development. Quite a number of the resources that are used in developing gift and craft items are located in rural parishes, very remote in some instances. So we have to look at how we can access some of these resources properly, and how we can now give access to persons who are in remote areas to the general market space. So taking the products to markets where it is more accessible for them to earn. And so that's what we're talking about: access to infrastructure, access to incubators, which is something that the Jamaica Business Development is very keen on, in terms of providing production facilities for persons who may not have their own production facility. And you can always come in. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we roll out this series. We're also looking at business development models and how we can innovate to ensure that persons are developing strong businesses and ensuring that at the end of the day, these are viable business models that can be sustained. And last but not least, looking at gift and craft at the community level. There are so many community brands now that exist that can be so rich I'm just thinking about a compound for one. I'm thinking about Treasure Beach. I'm thinking about Hollywell. I'm thinking about Blue Mountains. I'm thinking about Port Antonio. There's so many little pockets of interesting stories in these communities that we need to be able to package and sell. It's something that can be sold. It is something that can be used to attract persons to these communities and bring them into those stories. And so at the community level, we all need to start sitting down and saying, what is interesting about my community? What is unique about that community? Is it unique for Moringa? Is that something that's unique in your community? And can we build a story from that? Um, what is it that we can do to, as a collective, not just as individuals, but as a collective, use those resources that we're not really paying attention to right now and see how best we can implement. So I'm just gonna go through some of the topics that you'll be able to look forward to coming in the next few weeks. We are going to be having quite a number of partners that will be coming in to present on areas that I mentioned earlier, both local and international partners. When we talk about the markets and what are some of the trends in the markets, because we did say that we have to understand what the markets are doing, we will be looking at bringing in speakers from local and international trade spheres to come and speak to us about what some of those trends are and what persons have been doing. We know, for example, that recycling is a big thing, and in order to do that, though, we have to understand how it works and how we work with the materials. So we'll be talking a little bit about working with non-traditional materials and materials that we may not necessarily be looking at now, but can be used in the production of craft products. We'll be looking at new and innovative ideas to produce, looking at community branding. That's going to be a very strong one. And looking at the importance of associations, craft associations, your craft association chapters, your craft market associations, your potters association, your artisan associations. All these associations can be lobbying for specific things. So you have to, it's not just coming in as an association to say, boy, things rough and, can't manage. It's about coming in with a conversation that says, these are some of the things that we would like to do, and these are some of the solutions that we think would assist us, and this is how we plan to benefit the community or the association. So definitely one of the takeaways I want to give to persons here is that get involved into an association, get into a membership, because we will be engaging at the association and community level. It's going to be too difficult for us to engage at the individual level, and we don't want anybody to be left out. We'll be looking at some of the regulatory bodies and the regulatory support that is in place to provide you with incentives in your production. Looking at youngsters coming up in school. So we want to make sure that we have gift and craft dominant and prominent from the basic school level as a subject that must be taught and encouraged, because not everybody will be approaching the academia in the same way. And so we want to be able to utilize our gifts, our hands, our talents, and we want to encourage that from a young age. And we want to look at what are some of the careers that can evolve and emerge. So parents, if you hear your kids saying they want to go into the gift and craft industry, leave them alone, let them do them thing. But speak to them about how to really convert that to a monetary value and not just, token. So yes, we want to encourage our young people to get into the gift and craft industry, and we definitely bringing in Edna Manley visual arts to come in and speak to us about some of the career opportunities involved in the gift and craft industry. We'll be looking at the repositioning of the craft market experience and how we can convert that to experience villages. What are some of the experiences that we can offer to visitors? Because it's one thing to export to other countries, but it's another to bring persons from other countries here. What do you have to offer them? What are you going to say to them when you say, we want the tour buses to come to our craft market? The tour bus is not coming, okay, because the tour buses are going to attractions. Okay, so what is going to be the attraction that is at the craft market that is going to make the visitor say, I would like to go to that craft market, that experience village, because there's something there I want to learn about Jamaican culture. So we have to have something to offer them, and we'll be providing support to see how best we can convert that concept. And that's it. I think what I would want to say is that this is really an invitation to persons in the industry to get on board, to get your voices heard, to communicate with the JBDC so that we can ensure that as we implement this policy, we are implementing it in such a way that is beneficial to you and beneficial to the country. And so I am basically finished. I don't know if there are any questions, and I will hand over to the host.
Thank you, Janine, for that very detailed presentation on the National Craft Policy. As Janine said earlier, you are now free to ask questions. I have been monitoring the chat. I have not seen any questions coming up in the chat, but if you have any questions or feedback on anything in particular, you may do so now. In the meantime, Sansia, the poll results, may we see what the poll is saying? My God. So wait, so where is Glendon? Glendon is I thought, okay, 100% female. Mr. Davis always pointed out that these sessions, when we were doing JBDC in concert, we had majority females, sometimes like 80% females, except, Glendon, did you fill out the thing? Except when we had, I think, music was when we saw a different response, when we had mostly males showing up for the session, which was talking about music. Glendon, you said no, you didn't fill in the form. I know you make we have 100% female responses in here. Okay, the age range is interesting. Majority of the participants are between 35 and 45. In terms of sector, fashion and apparel, 20%. Let me see which one is the biggest. It looks like fashion accessories, which includes footwear, headwear, jewelry. Okay, at 25. Everything else, gift packages at 25% as well. Okay, so at least we have, so Glendon, you're 55 and over. Glendon, please to fill out the form next time. Thank you very much. This data is very important to us, all right? No questions from anybody. If there are no questions, then I would just like to thank you for joining us for this presentation. What is this? I see one long message in the chat.
From Damian.
Okay, Annie, your video giving some problems. We're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel. You can stay in touch with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. So whenever we post any video on there, you'll see it. And so Annie, this morning you had issues. You can feel free to watch it again. We have a question here from Damian. Brand Jamaica and the use of it, Janine, especially via associations. How will you guarantee that foreigners don't register and gain access to our coveted emblems and symbols? I have seen this happen far too often. There are also companies perceived as Jamaican whose productions and operations are overseas that keeps prices more competitive than ours. So that's two questions in one right there. Janine, I recall a very famous musician sometime last year using our very precious coat of arms. All right, go ahead, Jan.
Okay, so in terms of the issue of the marks, that's one of the things that's going to be coming out of the policy, the development of national marks and assignments. So persons will have to be registered to be able to use some of these marks. There are also some other key things that would be coming out of JIPO in terms of geographic indicators and how it is these things are used. So we know that, for example, jerk, we have a geographic indicator for jerk, and we'll be looking at others that may have significant value that we need to protect. So once we get those things up and running, which is a part of the policy, then it will be for persons to apply for the use of the marks and the use of the licensing. And while we can use that as a way to keep out or to differentiate authentic from non-authentic, we still have to fight the battles. So we're not going to be able to fight every legal battle that somebody external is going to be trying to leverage. But it starts with the intellectual property protection. It starts with our local artisans now buying into registering and using these marks and ensuring that we locally are as a collective. And I remember saying to Suzette when we were discussing these webinars that one of the main things I want to point out about the development of the gift and craft industry is that it has to be the collective. It has to be the lobbying of the associations and the lobbying of the groups that will make the change. It's not good enough to say we don't want these imports. It's important for us to be able to lobby and state facts. And so we have the first demonstration of what might be an issue, and that is access to information. When we call and ask for information, are you going to be willing to be giving us this information? Because it starts with information. It starts with us being able to provide information to do the lobbying and to do the reinforcement of some of the intellectual property rights. And so that is one way we're going to be looking at that, Damien, looking at registering the marks, looking at the importation of products and their attempts to use these marks, and using that as a way of creating a barrier for entry for some of these, what we would call now illegal. But we have to put in the legal system in place for it to be able to, for it to stand up in court. The other, what was the other question about operations and pricing? Right. So when we spoke earlier about looking at production processes, that was definitely something that we would be looking at. Now, the market globally is going back into what we call this handmade luxury market. So there's a handmade luxury market, and it's very niche, but it is what is the most valuable part of the gift and craft industry. However, there are going to be some parts of the industry, for example, we talk about sandals and the ability to replicate. We can't use handmade in that regard because it may not be feasible when you're talking about buying a slippers for X price and us coming out. We would have to be able to explain that. And if you don't have the branding to support the pricing, then it means that you have to look at your production processes and the type of techniques that you're using. And so the capacity building aspect of the policy, we'll be looking at that. We'll be having a number of workshops and training courses. We have the incubator, we will have the masters coming forward and doing the training. We will have international persons perhaps coming in with new technology and new production processes that we can look to adopt. and so that we can be competitive with those countries. So that's definitely something that we're going to have to be looking towards.
All right, thank you, Janine. Your mention of focusing on community brands earlier has caught the attention of Annie Simpson in particular, who seems to be really excited about that, going back to community tourism. I see Danian making another point that she has seen brands claiming to be Jamaican and they're untrue. Such as castor oil, Jamaican black castor oil, is it? Another question from Danian is about GoFundMe ventures. How do we compete with foreigners raising funds on our behalf and never make it here?
Wow, that's not something that I'm really qualified to speak on because I don't really have enough information to speak on that. But I would say that that is something that sounds like it would have to be covered within the sphere of legal intervention. And as I indicated, yes, there are some instances that we have legal right to challenge, but it may not be feasible or viable to do so. So sometimes it's more an affirmative action that needs to be taken under the branding component. And you mentioned earlier persons using branding branding their products by saying Jamaican castor oil and so on. Well, that is what they call leveraging. You would have to now challenge them to say if the castor oil is actually from Jamaica, and are you willing to challenge them? And so it's far more difficult to challenge than it is for you as a local producer to come up with an affirmative action to put out the protection under your unique brands and to leverage. And that's what they're doing. They're leveraging. So when we talked earlier about packaging and branding, and I mentioned that quite a number of the products on the market for Jamaican gift and craft, they are not packaged and branded and labeled properly. And so you can't really identify who the maker is and who the brand is. And it starts there. It starts with the packaging and the labeling and the branding that helps you to create an identity. And then if we see someone else now doing something that infringes on that, then it gives you an ability to challenge them. And therefore that means formalization, for example. It means registering marks. It means investing in some of these intellectual property items that allows the consumer to know who you are and go after who you are in the market. So you may not be able to fight all of those battles, but if the consumer is able to identify you and your brand, and I see Miss Daphne May, I am saying hi to her because I know, for example, those dolls, you can tell, you know that it's coming from there. There is a unique mark, a unique way that the dolls look, and so you can see if somebody else is doing something similar and it's a challenge for you and you want to challenge it, then you have something to say, look, mine has been in the market for X years, this brand has been on the market for X years, and so you are infringing. And it's so important for us to start looking at ensuring that we are packaging and branding and positioning ourselves properly so that we don't lose our value. We have persons coming into us as craft producers that are not registered businesses. And that is important. It is important when you talk about funding and going after funding opportunities, you have to be regularized and formalized. And so I'm not sure, I'm hoping that I'm answering the question. I can't speak to the GoFundMe issue, but I can tell you that a lot of the protection issue starts with your own branding.
All right, thank you, Janine. Miss Daphne May Lewis has her hand up. I'm gonna take I'm going to unmute her and she can go ahead and speak.
That's right. Good morning. Now, I have two things on this list.
Are you hearing her?
One, are you hearing? Okay. One, the labeling, which you have already cleared up, and thank you, you are correct. But every piece of thing that I buy that's marked made in China has a little gold sticker hidden somewhere. When I have asked for this before, either you haven't heard me or you've ignored me. We need a national little sticker, a flag saying Jamaica, or even a flag, to put on every registered craft producer's product. So when I go into the store or I try and sell my goods, they know I'm registered, and the thing is quite simple. You stick your little sticker on. The size of your thumbnail will do. That's one. Two, I hope that you won't throw out all the work that we've done with the associations and our meetings for all these years that I've been in craft. That's since 1974. We need to get that catalogue that has been sitting there so long out to the hotels as we stated. Quite a few of us put in photos and whatever, and it should be ready now. Because like most people now, I am totally out of business. Thank you. Now let's hear your answer.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and questions. Janine, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so in terms of the national mark, that is a part of the policy, the development of national marks. So it's a number of them that will be developed, and persons will have to register to use them. And so that is part of the reason why we're promoting strongly that persons become formalized, so that when you come in to register, you would have met the criteria for the use of the marks. And then we'll be able to now differentiate those products from the ones that are being imported. The other point about the catalog, I'm not quite sure which one of the catalogs you will be speaking about, but I know, for example, through the Ministry of Tourism and collaboration with JBDC, the Christmas in July catalog is produced every year. So it's not the Christmas in July, okay. And as part of the policy as well, as part of the market access component of the policy, that is something that we will be looking at in terms of providing market access, but not just for the hotels, but digitally through the Things Jamaican e-commerce platform, of course, and others such like, and through the Things Jamaican brand digitally to promote those products and the catalogs in those products overseas.
Thank you, Janine. I have, but we, Miss Daphne, we can't hear you because you're currently muted. I realize you're trying to say something, but we cannot hear you. Let me see if I can find you.
Okay, the catalog
Daphne?
I'm here. The catalog that I was referring to is the one that was announced that to take our products into the hotels. And we were to contribute photos and details, and this would be made into a catalog. This is the item I'm talking about. Even though I would love to be on your online catalog.
Okay, I'm not certain which catalog you're referring to. That's something.
Okay.
Yeah, because we would have she wouldn't have been included in True Stories.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
It was a catalog for
Christmas
promoting sales in hotels the length and breadth of Jamaica. When you go into the gift shops, you don't find local goods, very
Right.
rarely,
Mhm.
very rarely. So the catalogue was to answer that problem. And then it
Okay.
would be monitored by Things Jamaican, which would mean that you don't have craft producers trailing in with one bag and another bag. You do it officially and formally through this catalogue, which would mean salespersons going into the hotels.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. I am not aware of that catalog.
No, it's all right. I
Perhaps
think it got a
Janine can
little bit lost.
investigate which one. Janine will investigate because we're only aware of our own brand, which is True Stories, as well as the Christmas in July, which is published on an
That's all
annual
right.
basis. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure which one you're referring to.
No,
Uh,
I think it's gotten lost somewhere in the making.
okay. All right, Miss
All
Daphne.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can unmute me.
All right. I am seeing a comment from Annie Simpson, Janine, and she is referring to the community aspect where she says she has been in meetings, yet when it comes comes around, small producers are left out. And I think that is what the policy is trying to address by including you, the producers, at this stage. The Honorable Minister Floyd Green was very clear about that when we launched the policy at the Jamaica Pegasus in July. He wanted the implementation phase to start with the producers. So JBDC is trying to ensure that we change that particular trend this time around, where you are in fact included in the implementation phase of the policy. Danian is asking, will there be legal support given to artisans who enter into contracts with distributors who dictate pricing?
So through the business development component and the capacity building, some of that will come out in the trainings that are going to be made available, and in the business development support that is going to be made available to the participants. However, it's really just to sensitize in terms of knowledge and information. When you start looking at the creation of contracts and things like that, it's going to be unique to the particular relationship that you're trying to build, and therefore some of that will have to be invested in by the entrepreneur themselves. But it starts with understanding what types of contracts are needed, how to approach those contracts, and during the business development component, you will be exposed to some of that information, and you will be given, through the ecosystem aspect of it, access to persons, lawyers, and things of that nature that you can perhaps engage with to get some of that done. So some of it will be done by the enterprise level themselves, and some we will provide information and support where that is concerned. And some of that legal conversation will also come out in what we call the intellectual property component of it, which we will rely heavily on support from JIPO for. So yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay, I'm seeing another question. Is any work being done to protect our trademarks abroad? I think you touched on that earlier, Janine, in terms of in terms of the work that JIPO is currently doing. So that question would have been answered earlier, and the short answer would be yes. Minister Green is also very keen on that as well, and is working feverishly with JIPO to ensure that we really begin to protect our innovations or brands, etc., in a serious way. Romy is asking, how can we join Craft Council?
Well, you can't, it's the craft council is not something that you can join, because it's basically a body of representative entities that will be looking to implement the policy. What we would say, however, is that as part of the makeup of that craft council is a representation of associations, and community-based groups. And each of these groups need to have a representative, so that when there is, we can't use all the groups either, or all the associations. So eventually what we are going to have to do is to join all these chapters into one body of association of craft producers, so that your representation can come through that body. So you lobby at the association level, and the association makes representation on your behalf, which is why I'm driving home the need to ensure that the associations strengthen and understand what issues they want to be addressed, and come with solutions, come with recommendations, and then as a team, we can look to see how we can implement some of these recommendations. So it starts with joining into an association, or creating a group of your own, creating a community-based group. And there are going to be a number of initiatives that will be able to access. Jamaica is small, but it's still big, so we can't look at individuals. We have to look at groups, bodies, and associations. So it starts there, and the council will have representation from those associations that will represent on their behalf. And also for us to get information on these associations. So we know of a few, but maybe we don't know all of them. So it would be important information for us to know as we start engaging at the community level, for persons to provide us with information on the different associations that exist.
All right, thank you, Janine, and thank you so much to our participants for your level of engagement. You have been drilling Mrs. Fletcher-Taylor for the last almost 30 minutes, and Danian is coming back again. What are the set timelines? How do we score success?
Okay, so it starts with the formation of the Craft Council. The Craft Council will also have a technical working group that is responsible for implementation. And JBDC is the key coordinating agency for the implementation. And every year, we see this as perhaps a 5-year build out that we will have to also upgrade as we go along, because as you can see, we're in interesting times. So while the policy would have been written sometime now, maybe 3 years, the development of the policy would have taken 2 to 3 years, there would have been some new things that we need to consider. So we have to look at that at an annual basis. So each year, this work program will be developed and shared. One of the key things I remember Minister Green speaking about is the public awareness, the awareness campaign on what is happening. And this virtual bizone is one such exercise to ensure that we are spreading the word and providing the information. So one thing you can do to help us is to ensure that as many persons as possible that is involved in the industry and needs to get the information, to have them join the virtual biz zones, because the information will be passed out in that way. And the implementation plan will be shared in a similar way. And through those implementation plans, you will see key success factors that we'll be using to measure the success. And then we will have to report in our annual report, what would have happened. So that would be the process of understanding what implementation is going to involve, what are the key success indicators, and how we match up to them at the end of the implementation.
Thank you, Janine. Danian, I hope that answered your question. Okay, Sherry Bent has a quick question. I want to launch a literature product on Amazon for the Christmas season. Do you already have a logo or mark that I can place on the book to show it is authentically made in Jamaica? I'm new to publishing.
No, we don't have the mark yet because we haven't actually started the implementation. The public awareness phase is the first phase of implementation. But I know that we have developed a few marks in recent times through other initiatives, and we will not be reinventing the wheel. So it's really just to get those marks tabled and protected and registered. But at this point, we have not started that part of the implementation just yet.
All right, thank you, Janine. It is now 11:27, and I think this is where we will bid you adieu. And thank you so much for joining us. We put this out yesterday, and thank you so much for joining us at short notice. Do book this slot in your calendar for the next few weeks. Every Thursday morning at 10 a.m., you will see another expert within the gift and craft industry presenting on one of the many interesting topics that Janine outlined earlier. Spread the word. If you have friends in the industry, pull them along with you. Janine spoke about the importance of joining together and forming groups as we seek to develop the gift and craft sector. So don't just take the information for yourself. And you were here this morning when we post it on YouTube. Ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because there are other things on there for you to learn. Share it with the other persons in your circle and implore them to join. Implore them to also contact the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. We are headquartered at 14 Camp Road in Kingston, and of particular interest to you is our incubator and resource center located at 76 Marcus Garvey Drive, where we have Garmex. I see Mr. Colin Porter, who is technical services manager at that location. He has been sitting quietly in this webinar all morning. That's somebody you also want to get to know very well along with his team. That's where we have our incubators in terms of fashion. We have our food incubator. We have our craft incubator. And very importantly, you've been asking about branding all morning. We have our visual communications unit there, and they are very talented bunch of designers who will help you to brand and package your products. Please do not stay home and try to do it yourself, right? Sometimes it's not cute, and buyers like myself tend to gravitate to what looks good. You may have something better on the inside of your packaging, but I may never know because the packaging was so poorly done. I could not pick that up and put it in my cart. I picked something else, all right? And there are many more like me out there. So you do want to visit us at Marcus Garvey Drive for your branding needs as well as incubator space when you need it, and everything market access right here at 14 Camp Road. Follow our website at jbdc.net. We are on every major social media platform. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all of them. YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll see it pop up on your phone or any other device as soon as we post something. It's everywhere. We are in Montego Bay, Glendon. Yeah. What's our location in Mobile? Can you remember? But you will find that information on our website. I really don't remember the address offhand, but we are in Montego
We
Bay.
are at shop for
Okay, for
Impact
a
Plaza. Impact
Cottage
Plaza.
Road, Impact Plaza. Why? I'm not sure. Well, Simone is from Mobile, right? So Simone says 4A Cottage Road. That's Simone Morrison, one of our representatives in Montego Bay, a business development officer. So Glendon, you want to become besties with Simone, feel free to reach out to her. Like I said, all the information that you're looking for about us, you'll find it on our website at www.jbdc.net. Follow us on all of those social media platforms I mentioned earlier. Send us your email address. I think once you register for this, you become part of our email database, and so you'll get emails from us. So pay attention and stay tuned. This is critical information that you are getting at a time like this. By the time we're out of this, by the way, we are not doing this. This is no longer a COVID thing, because this is what some people are calling the new normal. And so when we started, it was to engage you during COVID-19, but COVID is still here. And so we've moved beyond COVID-19, and we're just ensuring that we are ready. I see the number being posted. Glendon, write it down quickly, because we're gonna log off right about now. All right, it's now 11:32. It's almost lunchtime. I wish you a good day and rest of the week. Stay safe. Remember to wear your mask. Observe social and physical distancing. Tana your yard if you don't have to go on the road. And just protect yourselves so that we can all come out on the other side of this. All right. Thank you for joining us. One love.